Hello everybody, welcome back. Thanks for watching. Boy, do I have an opportunity for you. Sitting in front of me is the greatest information that I've ever discovered before, and it's all thanks to my friend Paul Mampilli. If you guys have been following me, you guys know that I've been investing into the stock market, and I've been taking some recommendations from a guy named Paul Mampilli. He's worked on Wall Street for decades. He has a proven track record of making enormous wealth, billions of dollars, and turning 8 billion into like $60 billion in a year. Okay, we're talking about one of the greatest investors of our time. So earlier today, I had the privilege of joining him on a historic event, which he talked about in his conference video, the latest and the greatest stock that he's come across. And it could be the equivalent of investing into companies like Amazon or into Google's Alphabet, which are trading at thousands of dollars per share. And you guys, everybody who's watching this video has the opportunity to get in on the equivalent of one of those companies when they were still in their infancy stages. The company I'm talking about is trading for a mere $5 per share. But according to Paul Mampilli's work, that number is going to skyrocket into the thousands. So without further ado, I'm super excited. I'm happy you guys are tuning in. Check this video out. It's going to be a game changer, and it's going to be a life-changing investment opportunity. Like I said, if you guys choose to act upon the information I'm sharing with you today.
Summit. In a minute, I'll be joined by our guest of honor, legendary investor Paul Mampilli, to discuss why he believes we have entered one of the most important wealth creation eras for Main Street Americans in the last 123 years. He will tell us why it is now better than ever to swoop in and target gains in excess of 1,000% over and over again. Plus, Paul's #1 investment every American must own right now for the lion's share of gains in the days to come. An opportunity he believes could generate north of 1,460% in gains over the next 12 to 36 months. If you're not as familiar with Paul, keep in mind, for the last 25 years, he has been Main Street's go-to voice in the financial world. He famously won a prestigious investment competition in 2009, growing a $50 million account to $88 million in under a year during one of the most difficult periods in financial history. Paul's work has helped hundreds of thousands of people across the United States transform their lives. Now, though, things are different. We're moving into perhaps the most exciting period in stock market history. To quote Paul, "I've never been more bullish in my life." According to Paul, this situation, what he calls the super bull market, is a result of three powerful forces which have never converged like this before in the 123-year history of the stock market. Forces that are sending some companies soaring. And with the right strategy, you can begin rapidly collecting your share of the home runs. Paul will explain more about this unprecedented situation when he joins us, but it's important for you to grasp what is on the table here, because it makes everything he has done up until this moment pale in comparison to what is ahead. He has already helped hardworking Americans following his research secure exceptional gains of 524% in 17 months, 443% in 19 months, 191% in under 2 months. He has open positions with gains of 480% and 240% in just over 2 years. 220%, 140%, and 110% in under 2 years. 300%, 129%, 115%, and 100% in under a year. 250% in just 3 years. One investment he pinpointed more than doubled within 2 weeks. Another jumped 126% in 2 days, eventually climbing over 200%. Another trailblazing company doubled in a single day. Even more recently, another trade, Stemline Therapeutics, surged 149% in a day, ultimately delivering a gain of 191% after just 35 days. But now we're going to surge past this into an explosive frenzy of gains, unlike any other witnessed in American history. We're talking about quadruple-digit peak profits, enough to turn every $10,000 into $100,000 over the coming year, simply by hitching your wagon to the economic rocket that's already begun to blast off. Plus, potentially an even more immediate gain of 1,460% within 12 to 36 months by leaping on Paul's #1 Super Bowl investment. Keep in mind, Paul has been sharing his research with a handful of VIP readers for the last few years, and their results have been nothing short of amazing. Let me read a few to you right now. Thank you for all you do helping the little guy. I joined the lifetime version of your service in February of 2017 and am up about 25% in just 5 months. I am hoping to use this to pay for a dream family trip to Hawaii next summer. Thanks. That one is from Steve Freeman from Fargo, North Dakota. Now, this one is from Elliot from Buffalo, New York. He said, I invested $40,000 at the end of 2017. In just 2 years, my account has doubled. I took $10,000 to pay off some debt, and I just took another $30,000 out to put as a down payment on my first home. The profits I made increased my peace of mind greatly, and my initial investment is still sound and making more money. And now I have one more. This one is from Alex from Idaho. I bought 1,000 shares in this stock at $15.10. I can't believe my eyes. The stock is up to nearly $46. I made $31,000 on a single stock in a matter of a couple weeks. Now, we can't promise you'll see the exact same incredible results, but today you're going to discover how to strategically place yourself at the ground floor of the new titans of industry. These are companies which will rule in the years ahead. The companies that are already seeing investments from some of Wall Street's top firms. The companies leading the charge into some of the biggest market gains we will ever witness. We're going to show you the powerful signal-based strategy Paul has spent over 20 years developing. A strategy he hired 4 full-time researchers to track every single day. A strategy with over 13,000 hours in historical data research backing it. A strategy designed to help you target triple and quadruple digit gains over and over again. The kind of gains that will help you feel more at ease about your financial future. The kind that will allow you to make choices you want in your life. And Paul will tell you all the details on the #1 investment every American must own to capture the biggest possible profit in the months ahead. On that note, Paul, welcome.
Hi, Karina. It's great to be here, and I am unbelievably excited to dive in today. There is so much happening, so much opportunity, and I've been writing about it for months now, and I can't wait to share it with our viewers.
Well, this is such an exciting time in the market, Paul. You know, I read that in the first 3 months of 2020, over 1 million new brokerage accounts were opened, with 500,000 opened in March alone. And that tells me, and it tells you, regular people are just chomping at the bit for opportunities in this market.
And you know what, Karina? I truly believe that this time, Main Street American investors, they have got it right. Absolutely right. I am more bullish now than I've ever been in my life. More bullish than I was after the tech wreck unleashed the potential of companies such as Amazon and Microsoft and Google. More bullish than I was after 2008 when stocks such as Netflix and Facebook and Tesla rose to power. Right now, we have a perfect storm, a convergence. of three powerful economic forces, and those forces will push the economy and the market into regions of titanic growth. The early winners are already surging, Karina, such as Carvana, Wayfair, Zoom, and dozens of others. And folks following my research are already profiting from them. This is perhaps the most significant chance investors have had in 123 years to quickly build incredible, phenomenal wealth.
Well, I love your confidence, Paul, of course, but tell me, why do you feel so strongly about this?
Okay, in almost 30 years of my career, Karina, I've never seen a setup this good for Main Street investors. There has never been before been a way for people to make so much money so quickly. It just takes finding the right investments. The America 2.0 companies that are flourishing right now, while old world companies that we will soon see as relics just completely flounder.
Well, Paul, I actually have a video right here that I want to share with our viewers. You recorded this on March 31st, right around the start of this runaway bull market. Let me play that.
We're always looking forward and looking to anticipate what is going to happen, which is why you buy a stock. You buy a stock for something that's going to happen, and then when it happens, well, that's priced in. And so you've got to be in ahead of the big money coming to buy it. That way, the stock is in your portfolio, the money comes in, bids the stock higher, and those are gains in your portfolio. And right now, the stock market is telling you that it is beginning to anticipate the timing of the recovery. The next thing it will do is start to anticipate the strength of the recovery. And then it will also look to see which parts of our economy are going to benefit the most, fastest, and in the biggest way. And that's what I believe is happening right now with the overall stock market, with America 2.0 stocks, which in many cases have benefited from what has unfolded during this crisis. Social distancing has benefited so many companies, so many America 2.0 stocks, so many fourth industrial revolution stocks, because the ways that we have adopted will stick. And those companies are going to see that all that massive demand that they have seen come through over the last several weeks is going to stay. And now they will also be able to project sales and earnings going forward 1 year, 2 years. And as people see that, their confidence will rise and they will come to bid these stocks up.
Exactly right, Karina. I went on record to show how I believe America is going through a massive overhaul. This is a mega shift, Karina, that will propel us into what can only be considered a new era for our country. And with this massive shift, we are going to see some of the most amazing investment opportunities of our lifetime.
Now, you've spoken a lot about America 2.0. It's
Yes.
like a technological leap, a fourth industrial revolution, reshuffling power and control from old companies into new ones. You started talking about this years ago, didn't you? Right around the time that you started your first research service, Profits Unlimited?
That's exactly right. We've been preparing for this moment for many years now.
And you think it's happening right now?
Far from more than think it, some of my most ambitious stocks are seeing stratospheric leaps as this America 2.0 market unfolds. In fact, one company I recommended to my readers jumped over 100% in just a couple of days, Karina. Just 100%, just a couple of days.
Awesome.
I had 2 trade recommendations that doubled within 24 hours.
Wow, I mean, that's honestly truly incredible.
That's pretty cool.
And to be clear, though, these aren't day trades or fast money investments. These are stocks surging as the market powers in behind them.
Exactly right.
Okay, so it makes me even more excited that you're here today to share the details on your #1 Super Bull investment. But before we dive in further, I think we should take a step back and walk our viewers through who you are and what you've been working on. So impressive, because the truth is, this Super Bowl event and the America 2.0 opportunities didn't just emerge from nowhere, right? You've been tracking them, watching these opportunities set up for years.
That's correct. You see, these opportunities have been forming over time, like a coiled spring that's been getting tighter and tighter, just waiting to unleash all of that pent-up kinetic energy.
I've actually pulled together the results you've amassed over the last few years. For those of you watching, pay close attention, because here's a glimpse of the growing list of the more than 40 triple-digit winners Paul has recommended across his various research services over the last 3 years, including several we've blurred out that are still climbing. He made 524% in foundation medicine and 443% on Arcule in a little over a year, 400% in Monopar Therapeutics in just 1 day, 393% in Roku in under a year, 332% in MTech Acquisition Corp in just 3 months, 199% in Tableau software in just a few years, 184% in Exact Sciences in just a couple of years, 166 in Vernet X Holding Corp in just a little over a year, and 125% in PayPal in under 2 years. Wow.
You know, it always thrills me when my readers are making money. But you have to remember, these are the returns from over 300 stocks I have recommended and hundreds of option plays across my 8 different services.
It's really amazing to me, and I think to our viewers, that you consistently make these calls and you give your readers the chance to profit.
That's true, and at the end of the day, it's all about them, my readers. That's who I do this for, the regular, hardworking men and women of our country, Karina.
Wow, you know, it's refreshing and it's so wonderful to hear that you show up for your readers every day. And I know you had an investment not long ago that blew the roof off of everything. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. My pleasure to do so. Back around early 2000, I started watching the development of a new industry in the growth of genomic research. That industry is now called precision medicine.
And what does that mean exactly?
So essentially, this is a form of targeting disease and illness based on your own personal DNA. And it's a complete game changer, Karina, for the science that some have said could lead to more than doubling the average lifespan. Now, I personally profited early on with an investment called Exact Sciences, which handed me a gain of 355% after just a few years. However, this was in the early days before people knew what was really coming. But I knew there was more to the precision medicine trend. So fast forward to 2016, and a company exploded onto the scene, a company called Foundation Medicine. And ambitiously, it targeted the king of all diseases, cancer.
So I am sure it came under extreme scrutiny from investors, health officials, and many others.
Absolutely right. And actually, in November 2016, when I was becoming really confident about this company, every Wall Street analyst was pumping out nothing but negativity about it. Bloomberg reported Foundation Medicine outpacing losses in biotech. And then Capital Market Labs wrote Foundation Medicine forms death cross. You name it, Karina, and they were saying it.
Yeah, but you were undeterred.
Well, not to sound arrogant or boastful, but I've learned to spot a few things during my time investing. It's how I forged my own wealth and helped my former clients achieve incredible profits. And I knew, Karina, I knew Foundation Medicine, based on all the hard-boiled facts, not the hype, had plenty of upward momentum.
And it looks like you were spot on. Let's go ahead and pull up the chart of Foundation Medicine stock for our viewers.
You can see right here where my strategy told me it was time to get in. The stock began a hard rally. A little over a year later, once the stock had already tripled, Wall Street started pouring in. In fact, the investment bank Cowen, one of the first to identify Amazon early on, and the first Wall Street group to write about the cannabis industry, changed their rating to outperform on Foundation. But it wasn't until April 26th, a little over a year after my initial recommendation. By then, the stock had already more than doubled.
So if you had followed Wall Street in on Foundation, you would have totally missed the boat.
Exactly. But if you had bought Foundation Medicine here in February, when I urged readers to get in, you would have seen a gain of 524% in little over a year. However, if they had jumped in around April, just a year later when Wall Street finally fessed up to the reality of the situation, they may have walked away with at best a 80% gain.
What made you recommend readers to sell if you expected the company to soar 1,000%?
You know, I didn't want to sell. I think Foundation could have gone much higher still. But it received a huge buyout offer from Roche, so it was kind of out of my hands. And while I know it could have gone much higher, I'm still pretty pleased with the results.
Well, why wouldn't you be, right? A $10,000 investment in Foundation Medicine came back as more than $60,000 in a little over a year. And Foundation Medicine is just one of your home runs in 2018 and helped generate the incredible profits your readers have written in about. Listen to this. Daryl G., he says, FMI is skyrocketing. Wow, I am at 549% return on this stock now. That's incredible. Warren H., though, he wrote this. I invested $46,655. And just over a year, it blew up into $126,592, $78,899 in profits. Or Lauren W., who ecstatically told us, I invested $20,000 in this stock and held it for a little over a year. Thanks to you and this trade alone, this will pay for my child to go to college anywhere they want to go. Huge weight off my shoulders. These among many others, really. In fact, I was just thinking you had an almost identical setup just last year, right?
That's right. One of our other big winners was in the same exact America 2.0 trend, precision medicine. It's easily among the biggest, most important trends we're going to see.
So how did this trade unfold exactly?
So I received a Slack message from one of my team members at 5:47 a.m. It's on December 9th, 2019, telling me one of our big plays, Arcule, was being bought out by Merck and Company.
Ooh, talk about history repeating.
Right, exactly. So we had recommended that folks get in on Arcule at $3.62 and sell it, listen to this, for $19.65, which is a 443% gain.
That is incredible. I mean, we're talking enough right here to turn $10,000 into more than $54,000 in a little over a year. That is huge.
It is, and I am beyond excited to help the people who trust me to find these profits for them, Karina. And to be truthful, I was a bit disappointed because like Foundation Medicine, Arcule, it had the potential to go much higher. And I never recommend a trade without fully believing it has 1,000% potential.
It looks like giants such as Roche and Merck agree with you. But the truth is, Paul, you've been doing this a pretty long time. Again, you were formerly one of the managers at a world's best ranked hedge fund with $6 billion in assets. But maybe you could shed light on the depth of your experience as a Wall Street veteran.
Well, without boasting, gladly.
Go ahead, boast. Why not, Paul?
First, everyone should understand, Karina, I came into Wall Street and finance with a lot of pressure. As an Indian immigrant, my father, he poured pretty much all his savings into sending me to the United States to come here to go to college.
Wow, what a sacrifice. But very much a sink or swim situation for you.
Yeah,
Paul.
and that only became more true when I started working as a desk clerk at what was then Bankers Trust and now is part of Deutsche Bank.
Considering it has $1.4 trillion in assets, at least last year, I'm sure the pressure was just really on there.
It was.
Okay, so you started at Deutsche Bank, and obviously your trajectory was upward.
That's right. From there, I worked at ING. But at this point, Karina, I was gaining a lot of momentum from my investing. And so I decided to move and work with a private firm.
Kinetics Asset Management?
Exactly the one. I took over one of their funds. When I started at the firm, the fund I took control of was worth $1 billion. Within about 2 years, we had grown to $6 billion.
That is an enormous leap.
We actually got a write-up as one of the best and most fascinating firms in the world in 2008. And around the same time, I was asked to compete in one of Wall Street's most prestigious investment competitions. And during the tumultuous 2008-2009 market, I grew the $50 million competition account into $88 million in just 1 year.
And you did all of this following a massive market correction. At the time, the greatest really since the Great Depression.
Yes, because the truth is, investing is about seeing through the hype, which is why I believe fully in our unfolding super bull market. Because the convergence of three forces is going to drive a handful of stocks to highs we've likely never seen before and at incredible speed. And I've developed the perfect signal-based strategy for targeting the biggest potential home runs of this event.
Well, I'm looking forward to circling back to that in just a moment. So, though it's after the 2008 crisis, we want to revisit this. You've had an incredible success at this point.
Right.
And then in a few years, you've gone from a desk clerk to head of a world-renowned hedge fund, making millions for your clients. I'm sure this attracted a lot of attention.
It was a whirlwind of attention, and I started to receive invitations to appear on TV. Then there were conferences and dinners, whining and dining, all that kind of stuff. And when financiers, they figure out you have a model that works, they do everything they can to get it.
But what we're discussing today, you really think this could be the crown jewel?
Yeah, I've invested hundreds of thousands here at my research firm in developing the right approach for targeting companies with the greatest quadruple-digit gain potential, Karina. Companies that are riding the multi-trillion-dollar wave of capital created for America 2.0. And the formula I use has three specific signals that we look for. So these signals allow us to shave away the distractions and focus on the few things that are destined to unleash gains of 1,000% or better.
And somehow, in the 25 years that you've been on Wall Street and investing, nobody had really designed an effective way of targeting them, separating the wheat from the chaff and making consistent money.
Exactly. And I wanted to change that. My strategy is the key. I know this because if I had published it sooner, it could have led you into companies such as Netflix, Facebook, Tesla, Google, Twitter, companies that would have returned you many, many times your money. I know this because these metrics allowed me to personally profit from each and every one of them, even when the mainstream financial media was kicking them around, telling you that they were worthless.
Well, you got into Netflix pretty early, as I recall, right?
I did, but bear in mind back then, Netflix, it was far from the international video streaming titan it is today. At the time, Netflix mostly traded in DVDs, and the idea of video streaming was still a pretty early stage at that point. But I knew, I really did, that if management did its job and did it well, it would unlock a global game changer and make me an absolute fortune.
Wow, I mean, Netflix shares were as cheap as $3 or $4 back then.
That's right. I mean, it was dirt cheap. Now, technically, I personally got in at $23, but since then, the stock has gone through a 7-for-1 split. So yes, my average cost then would have been around $3 or $4 per share.
Wow, and then since then, the stock has literally traded for as high as over $400 a share. So you've already been there for one of the major stocks that changed the world.
Exactly correct. I held Netflix for less than 2 years and sold when it traded for just over $100. And while I didn't ride it to its absolute high, the fact remains I made a complete fortune for Netflix. And because I got in early, which is exactly what I'm talking about doing today.
But Netflix, it wasn't the only one. There's a pretty wild story I've heard about you being one of the first public investors in Google.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
Google. I mean, Google, I have to say, that even today, I'm so proud of that investment. I was actually watching Google when it was still private, Karina, using their technology, and I saw it spread like wildfire around my hedge fund office. And it became so pervasive, so common, so quickly. I knew it would be around for the long haul.
But let's be upfront here. This wasn't a popular opinion at the time.
Absolutely not. Far, far from it. Can you imagine at a time when people actually thought this, Karina, Google might be a flash in the pan, a fad. And today, what? It's a verb. But back in 2004, people, they were lambasting the company. I remember The Economist calling the initial public offering, or IPO, cursed. Can you imagine that?
Oh my gosh, I love that. You know you're successful when you're a verb. That is so
right.
cool. But you know what? You weren't swept up in all that bad press.
Not in the slightest. Even then, I was using a modified approach to the strategy I will be sharing today. And as a result, I knew I was looking at an absolute home run. And I decided to go all in, putting every penny that I could into Google's IPO.
So you weren't actually, well, actually you were, I should say, beyond confident that this was a windfall.
Absolutely. I was certain that this one was going to be huge. 100% sure. And I went to great lengths to secure my spot.
So what do you mean by that? You wouldn't just put in to buy the stock at IPO?
So Google, Karina, was a Dutch auction, which is, a really unusual thing. And this is when Dutch auctions, they were pretty much unknown, uncommon, certainly. And so in a Dutch auction, it means that you start with the price being high, and then it gets bid lower until the lowest price is hit. And so you really had a lot of different things that you had to consider. So it scared a lot of people away from wanting to do this IPO. Then on top of that, Google, it delayed the IPO date. So now I had a ton of money locked up in my brokerage account for weeks on end, waiting and waiting for Google and its investment bankers to price the stock. Because you know what, Karina, I knew I really, really wanted to be in at the IPO price.
Well, Paul, I can say you are the only investor I've met who has invested that early, not in one, but two legendary FANG stocks. These are if-only situations, but you've taken them out of the realm of fantasy and you've made them very real. How is that possible?
Well, Main Street American investors, Karina, in my judgment, they've been taught to think that doubling your money is rare, quintupling it once in a blue moon, who knows, it'll take a long time, and making 10 times your money, well, they've been told that that's next to impossible. However, that's simply not the truth. In this America 2.0 world, the chances at life-changing gains, Karina, are popping up everywhere. And now with the three converging forces I'll discuss in a second, there are even more numerous investments primed and ready to spin off huge windfalls.
And I know that you've been saying for a while now that this opportunity is mostly for Main Street investors, not Wall Street.
Right. I have been saying that because it's like a secret bull market, Karina, for regular Americans, almost completely restricted to them. And the so-called elites, they are blind to it. They will probably see it, but it's going to happen in a while, eventually, when all of these companies are already bid up 100%, 200%, 300%, or even 1,000%.
Oh, and by then, the big gains will be gone.
Yeah, the big gains will be in our readers' accounts. That's exactly right. So while the mainstream financial media would have you believe the world is going to hell in a handbasket, I'm going on record, Karina, to prove why this moment right now marks the beginning of the greatest bull run in history.
How do you mean?
Well, first you have to understand what really pushes massive economic growth. Those things are cheap money, innovation, and eager consumers.
Okay, to be clear, these are the three forces behind the super bull market we are seeing unfold today. The forces you've mentioned earlier.
That's correct. In essence, there has to be a high flow of capital into new technology stimulated by consumer behavior. We saw it with the rise of computing, social media, cars, trains, as far back as you go. Those three forces are absolutely critical for major leaps.
And this is happening right now?
We are seeing all three now on an unprecedented level. First, we have the financial side. We have a surge in government stimulus to the tune of $1.5 trillion, with the government essentially guaranteeing to push the markets up. Couple that with historic low interest rates, and even executive orders to deregulate multiple industries. Businesses are receiving more loans, and tax forgiveness programs are allowing those businesses to keep more of their money. We're also seeing an uptick in mortgages and in car buying. People, Karina, are excited about the future for the first time in a long time. In short, money is not only freely flowing in the economy, it is being pushed to new highs more aggressively through unprecedented government efforts.
It's just a tsunami of
right,
cash.
right.
I believe the government added more than $6 trillion into the economy.
Yeah, and again, that only feeds into the other major economic forces at work right now. Because all of that money, Karina, is funneled into massive innovations. Let's take, for example, a recent article from Forbes that said the manufacturing industry will experience 5 years of forward innovation in only 18 months. 18 months. So we're seeing a massive acceleration in technology leaps, and it's changing our society from top to bottom.
So what kind of innovations do you see happening?
I'm talking about cloud computing, data storage, automation, workforce optimization, 5G technology, 3D printing, digitization, and there's so many, many, many more. And all of these are happening at faster and faster rates. Just consider that we have more billion-dollar Silicon Valley startups than ever before. These are called unicorns, as many of you might know. In 2013, there were 39 companies under 10 years old valued at more than $1 billion. By 2019, Karina, that number had grown tenfold to 484. And that's all being amplified by the third major force.
Okay, now this is the consumer spending you mentioned, right?
It's more than that, Karina. Just call it consumer spending really doesn't give it due justice. This is a generational shift of a caliber we have not seen since the rise of the baby boomers. And let me put it this way, Karina. The last record-changing event in retail sales was set, you won't believe it, was set 20 years ago right now, when the oldest millennial was 19 years old. The millennial generation, a generation so large it eclipses the baby boomers in America, they control, wait for this, a jaw-dropping $2.5 trillion in global spending power. And they are using it, riding the waves of innovation and government stimulus to completely reshape the markets. For example, multiple brokerages, as you mentioned earlier, saw record-breaking days in which new accounts were open. One reported a 300% growth in accounts. The millennial generation, they are reshaping the hospitality industry with companies such as Airbnb. They've transformed investing with things such as Robinhood. And they are completely changing travel and commuting.
I actually have an article here from the Financial Times. The headline alone says a whole lot. How millennials became the world's most powerful consumers.
Well, the Financial Times have got it exactly right, Karina. And those powerful consumers, they are diverting trillions in capital to automated cars, innovations in home purchasing, and digital workplaces, travel, and more. They are even leading the charge for space exploration, Karina. Space exploration, yeah.
Okay, so we're talking unprecedented amounts of economic stimulus, powering massive leaps in technology, driven by the largest consumer generation in American history. I had really never seen those three put together, and it makes you realize the sheer amount of economic momentum at work right now.
It's why we've had some of the biggest single-day market rallies in history over the last few months, because these three forces, Karina, are converging in a seismic way. The pressure has built to critical levels, and we've seen some key stocks, Karina, benefit from it. Zoom Video, this is a great example.
Yes.
The company behind the online conference calls and business communications, it went, well, listen to this, from 10 million active daily users to 200 million in 3 months, just 3 months. Slack, that we actually use ourselves, the chat and communication company, this broke a user record with over 12.5 million concurrent users, which means people using it at the same time. Telemedicine. This is another incredible example. We've seen this industry skyrocket. Once upon a time, consumers would never have ever accepted a doctor over the phone. But today, the shift in consumer demand and behavior, it's made this one of the biggest standouts of the coming decade.
And to your point, Paul, there's actually an article from Forbes that I read just before this event, and I saved this quote for our discussion. It says this: based on a recent survey, 59% of responders reported they are more likely to use telehealth services now than previously, and 33% would even leave their current position for a provider who offered telehealth access. That's huge. A third of people right now would actually leave their doctor.
You know what? I'd probably do the same thing. It's so much more convenient. And that's precisely what I'm talking about, Karina. The global healthcare industry, it's expected to top 11 trillion in the next 2 years. And this super bull setup that we're talking about today, let's push that wave of money into telemedicine.
So what you're saying, Paul, is that we're in a new economy,
Right.
a new market.
That's right.
And we're watching the new mega companies rise while old world firms get purged.
Absolutely correct. So companies, you've seen these in the news, J.C. Penney, Pier 1, J. Crew, Neiman Marcus, Dean and DeLuca, True Religion, and so many of these other conventional retailers, and they're also retailers that really don't cater to the millennial generation. They've all filed for bankruptcy. And yet, at the very same time, this is all going on at the same time, we've seen some companies shoot through the roof. We've seen companies such as Wayfair, the online furniture company, go from $27 to $221 per share. Amazon, which was already a pretty big company, went from around $1,785 a share to $3,000 a share. DocuSign, a company that exists solely to handle the online processing of contracts and documents. This stock has surged from $79 to $204. And this has all happened in less than 4 months, Karina. And you know what? Those aren't even going into some of the biggest winners. But when you look at them, they all have one thing in common. They are part of this new wave of wealth, part of the America 2.0 revolution, and leaders of what I see as the most aggressive super bull market of our lives.
And your strategy can help our viewers target those types of opportunities right now.
It can, and I have one huge investment for the people watching this broadcast. The most important single stock to own right now for a potential gain of 1,460% in the years ahead. And I believe this is pure math, and I'm going to explain it in a moment. But I want to stress how exciting the world we're in is right now. When I first set out, I knew that this strategy, it works, and it works really well. And I personally have used it to secure some of my biggest winners of my career. I've used it to show men and women how to grab gains as high as 524% in 17 months. And I have seen it pinpoint historic gains of 1,900%, 2,500%, and 3,100% over the course of 12 months during our extensive backtest. But those companies are just the start. They're the early innings because just the sheer volume of opportunity, Karina, just is incredible. The investments we are targeting day after day, it's really mind-blowing for even the most seasoned and experienced investors. I'm talking about companies such as Medifast, which my last count shows is up 6,950%. Or look at a company called Cena Corporation, up 3,025% since the early 2000s. These are the types of profits my strategy targets, and it's mind-blowing how truly easy it can be to target 10-bagger opportunities over and over and over again with this strategy.
Regular American investors have always been told 10-baggers are like Halley's Comet. Right. We'll see only a few of them, if at all, during our lifetimes. And you're saying this just simply isn't the case.
Absolutely not. Karina, based on my research, around 50 stocks soar 1,000% or more every single year.
You're talking about 4 opportunities to make 10 times your money manifesting every single month, every single year on average?
That's right. Here's what's going to really shock you.
Okay, I'm all ears.
When I first started implementing this signal strategy for readers 3 years ago, the number was 43. In 36 months, we've seen a 10% increase in the number of opportunities to make 10 times your money.
This is because of the development of America 2.0, I imagine.
That's right. The market is surging, Karina, surging, and people are feeling the effects. According to Credit Suisse's annual Global Wealth Report, we recently hit a new record high for adult wealth. In 2019 alone, America created 675,000 new millionaires. Let me put that in perspective. So following the tech wreck, 270,000 new millionaires were minted. Following 2008, the number of new millionaires grew by an average of 1,000 per day. Within 4 years, we had added 1.1 million new millionaires. Now, what I believe we are looking at now is even bigger. Perhaps history's greatest opportunity for a new wave of millionaires and multimillionaires to emerge.
So you're saying you believe that right now, people who get in at this very moment have an even greater chance of becoming a millionaire than any time in the last 20 years?
Exactly, completely right. I believe the number of 1,000% gains and the number of new millionaires created as a result will hit unprecedented highs in the coming months and years.
Now, to that point, you're saying we've already seen an increase in the number of stocks which surge 1,000%.
Right.
Whereas just a few years ago, it was only 43. Now it's 50 per year and climbing. And your approach, the signal strategy you've been using for years to successfully catch stocks such as Care.com, Foundation Medicine, Arcule, Iridium, you believe it is the key to profiting from this America 2.0 Super Bowl situation?
Absolutely. While I'm always happy with my past performance and the numerous triple-digit opportunities my followers have seen so far, I think what we have in store, Karina, right now will blow it all out of the water. You know, why settle for, dare I say it, mere triple-digit returns when we can target stocks such as E+ before it runs up 1,019% in just under a decade, or Booking Holdings, which rose 1,452% in 4 years, Tucows, 2,204% in less than 6 years, Zag, 1,879% in 3 years. These were some of the best gains we spotted with our historical backtest.
Now, of course, hindsight isn't always 20/20, right?
Yeah.
Just because many stocks can return 1,000% doesn't mean you'll hit them all at the perfect time.
Right, but with everything happening, I believe targeting stocks on the verge of soaring 1,000% or more will be easier than ever before. Now, many of these stocks, I have to say, are very small, they are volatile, and they are illiquid. What my strategy is designed to do is weed these stocks out because I found the DNA, the thread that ties all of the solid, long-term winning companies together. I don't want the go-nowhere plays. I want the sleeping giants, Karina. Sleeping giants.
I like that. Sleeping giants. Now, of course, since you swing for the fences with this strategy, there are times when you miss. But when you hit, your home runs will be more than enough to make the folks who follow your research and recommendations wealthy, as we're seeing right now.
Well, there's always a certain amount of risk in all investing. We just do our best to try to minimize it and shoot for the biggest potential wins that can help losses feel irrelevant. And I always say, you should never invest more money than you can afford to lose.
That makes sense. It's sound advice. And these are all pure stock trades, correct? We're not talking about using leverage of any sort.
No leverage, no option trading, no margin requirements. These are all easy to trade U.S. stocks. If you have a regular brokerage account, you can execute these trades today.
A few of these historical examples really stand up, and I'd like to pull up a few right now.
Okay.
Tyler Technologies, which returned 1,088% in 5 years. Neogenomics, up 1,281% in 7 years. Trex Company, up a stunning 2,832% in less than a decade. And while these investments may have taken years to unfold, any of them could have been a fortune maker if you caught them, which is exactly what you're trying to achieve with your research. Just a sliver of one's account invested in Trex, for example, let's say $10,000, would now be worth about $293,200. And listen up, that's in less than a decade. Above and beyond. I mean, isn't that incredible? It's just above and beyond anything the general market would have produced. But Paul, as you said, these are very small companies.
They are very small companies. If you want the real home runs, Karina, if you want the stocks that can turn $10,000 into $100,000 or even $500,000, that's where you need to go.
Sign me up.
Keep in mind, at one point, most investing home runs of today were yesterday's microcaps. Just over 20 years ago, for example, Amazon was trading for, I know people won't believe it, $1.50. And today it is what? Over $2,400 a share. That's about a 159,900% profit. So that turns every $10,000 into $16 million. So really unfathomable. The same story is true for Microsoft. Same story is true for Walmart and IBM. At one time, all the titans were small cap companies. But when the market began a mega shift as consumers made moves to digital formats and beyond, these companies began to rocket. Especially now with all the capital flooding into companies in the America 2.0 arena, companies which are lighting the fuse for the Super Bull run of the decade.
For our viewers, remember that in a moment. You'll discover the details on Paul's #1 Super Bull investment opportunity, a recommendation that he believes could return north of 1,460% in the months and years ahead. But first, Paul, here's the multi-million-dollar question. How does your strategy try to target these 50 stocks per year on average that are primed to rally 1,000%?
Well, my strategy is pretty complicated, but to help explain it today, I've broken it down into 3 specific signals that we identify. I'll quickly go over each of them. So the first signal is what I call disruption. I determine if the company is an industry disruptor.
Can you explain that for our audience? I mean, what do you really mean by disruptor?
Sure. So I'm scientifically finding out if the company is going to change the entire industry the way that Netflix changed watching TV, for example, or the way Apple changed phones and the way Amazon changed shopping. Again, we're vetting for companies that won't just make gains, but are tips of the spear in the new world of America 2.0. Finding disruptors is one of the foundational pillars of grabbing a 1,000% gain. Now, this could be a new drug, could be a new technology, it could be a new system for doing things. Sometimes it's a new medical device. And you know what? The list of what it could be is really endless. But the critical thing is that it has to disrupt the industry. It has to fundamentally upend the status quo of a sector. And this is key. I pay close attention to the potential market size for this disruptive company. And if the potential market is small, well, then the stock can only climb so far. But if it has a big potential market, then the stock can easily climb as much as 1,000%.
So we have signal 1, your disruption analysis.
Correct.
Tell us about the second signal.
All right, so signal 2 is when I crunch the numbers. Once I know a company is going to disrupt an industry, I need to make certain it has the potential to go up 1,000%. I look at a lot of numbers, and some are pretty basic. For example, I want companies with a market cap of $300 million to about $3 billion. I want those really small companies because they can grow for many, many years, delivering massive gains. And many times, those small companies tend to be lower priced, trading under $50, under $20, sometimes even under $5 per share. On average, our recommendations using this strategy cost about $14 a share. And I know that many people like to own a lot of shares, so those prices, they allow them to do exactly that. And there are dozens of other numbers I look at, but those are the foundational ones.
Well, since we don't have time to go through all of them,
Okay, right.
What's the most important number to you?
Hands down, I want to say that it is sales growth. Sales growth. I want to find companies that currently have under $3 billion in sales while growing sales an average of 10% to 20% a year. At this rate, a company would double its sales within 5 years, something which, without fail, catapults the stock price.
That's interesting. I mean, most people would say that earnings is the
Right.
most important number,
Right.
but you're taking a different approach here.
Well, most people look at earnings as the key number, but earnings, in my experience, Karina, it can be manipulated. If the chief financial officer wants his quarterly earnings to look good, he can move a few numbers around and suddenly they meet the earnings expectations. Sales, though, in my experience, Karina, it's a more pure number and a clear indicator for growth in a stock price.
Okay, got it. So signal number 1 is a disruption analysis. Signal number 2 is sales growth. What is the third signal?
So the third signal is something that most people probably never even consider. It's scarcity. It's something really basic. In short, I want to see an imbalance in demand and supply for the company shares itself. In other words, for the actual stock, which is usually represented in the amount of shares the company makes available. Or I want the companies that provide a unique service where there isn't much competition, whatever this company's product is. So think about this. The fewer shares there are with rising sales and a disruptive product or technology, the more the stock is bid up. And if there are only 3 or 4 or 5 companies providing the solution, well, then it's just like a coiled spring getting wound up tighter and tighter for a huge, massive move up.
Okay, so the first signal is if a company is disrupting a big market. The second signal looks at the numbers, especially sales growth. And the third signal is scarcity.
Right.
Paul, can you show me an example of a stock that pinged all 3 signals?
Let's take, for example, Sarepta Therapeutics. It's a personal trade that I made 2,500% on it in just about 8 months. So first, Sarepta, it signaled immense disruptive potential. Sarepta at the time was developing a drug specifically to treat Duchenne muscular dystrophy. This is a terrible, incurable disorder, usually affecting young boys. So about 200,000 cases manifest themselves a year. So you can see a potential treatment is definitely disruptive. And in total, this is a $4 billion market. With a successful drug, a company's revenue would go through the roof. I'm talking about catapulting a stock from a few dollars per share to hundreds of dollars, potentially overnight. Sarepta Therapeutics was creating such a drug and was having early success with it. So I was, of course, very interested in it. And this leads to the second signal, the numbers. Sarepta at the time was trading for about $1.12 a share. And their market capitalization, or stock market value, was sitting at around $130 million. And between 2007 and 2011, revenue had more than quintupled.
Okay, so financially, Sarepta was low priced and this is key, a sound company.
Right. Next, I also wanted to see scarcity. This was pretty cut and dry. It was one of the only companies on the planet with a possible treatment for Duchenne, and it was the closest to developing it. So all of this demand represented a powder keg. And then on April 3rd, 2012, I scooped up shares of Sarepta at about $1.12 per share. Soon after, the stock actually pulled back. However, because I had done my research, I didn't really worry about it. In fact, it kind of confirmed my belief because sometimes market makers and insiders will often squeeze the stock to drive the price lower for their own buying.
So you actually felt more confident during the pullback?
Right. And then Sarepta, it just soared. Enthusiasm over the potential of their drug sent the share price to the moon, and the pent-up demand just blew the doors down. Within 8 months, Sarepta was trading at $29 a share. But my research showed me it was time to get out. Experts were turning against the drug the closer it got to FDA approval time. I sold for a 2,539% gain. So every $10,000 invested would have turned into $263,900 in just a few months. And again, I bought in at $1.12 and sold at $29.56. So that's a gain of 2,539%.
You made 25 times your money.
Right.
Now let's think about that for a minute. Wow. The average retired couple has roughly $160,000. But if they peel off a sliver of their account, just $10,000, and invest it in a stock like this, they could more than double their retirement in just 8 months. Suddenly, a modest $10,000 savings soars to over $250,000.
Exactly, and Foundation Medicine is another example.
Well, I have a quote from you here from the day you recommended Foundation. You said, I've been watching this stock closely for 5 years. The time to buy is now. The signs point to it moving up big time in the next few months. And you were right that day, to the day, actually. I mean, it's incredible. Foundation moved in virtually a straight line. These 3 signals told you this would happen. Is that how you knew?
Yes, absolutely. Foundation Medicine, it was disrupting the industry with radical precision medicine treatments for cancer, which is potentially a $107 billion industry, which is purely targeting cancer. Then, just as I predicted, it saw a 70% revenue growth the year I recommended it. Add to this that Foundation Medicine was one of the leaders of precision medicine research and only had a share float, which simply means the number of shares that are out there in the market, of 37%. That's really tiny when you compare it to Apple's 91% at the time. In fact, Roche had previously invested $1 billion in Foundation. This company was a definitive buy for me.
So even though the stock was bought out when it reached 524%, it had all the makings of a 10-bagger. I don't think anybody is complaining, right, about turning $10,000 into more than $60,000.
Well, I can say we received no complaints on Foundation Medicine.
Nice.
No readers complained. Yeah, and in truth, it was incredibly exciting to have my readers make that much money on this one trade. I remember someone wrote in telling my team and I that they had gotten a new Mercedes and named it their FMI Mercedes. That was incredible fun to read, and it just gave me such a thrill.
It does, and they have a visual example of winning every day in their lives.
That's right.
But honestly, Paul, you're no stranger to these 10 times gains. There's also the personal investment you're holding right now that's up 30-fold. And these are just a handful of the home runs that you've been a part of over the last few years. And then there are dozens of other examples from your 13,000 hours of historical analysis. Let's look at a few of those.
Sure, let's go through those. So Constellation Pharmaceuticals is one. So Constellation focuses on developing innovative small molecule treatments for tumors. The stock is up 1,074% in just 1 year. Biomed stock went up 1,872% in a little over 4 years as it became a global leader in heart health and treatment technology. The company moved from heart replacement to heart recovery with its Impella technology. In short, a perpetual innovator and disruptor.
Well, it's interesting how each of these companies disrupted their sector, but more so the implications they had for disrupting the world at large, really, with major breakthroughs. Now, as our viewers just saw, a lot of these stocks are volatile, and it's also important to know that these were some of the best performers from a historical backtest. Remember, like you said before, past performance doesn't guarantee future success. So if one follows your recommendation, they should keep their current financial situation in mind. This isn't something to bet the house on.
Absolutely. we're going for 1,000% gains, which means a miss from time to time. But this also means that readers are only one trade recommendation away, just one trade away from making an extreme fortune.
Which is exactly what the men and women who followed you the last couple years have seen. Here's what some of them are saying. I trust Paul Mampilli fully. What a compliment. Paul, thank you for a 251% gain on stem line therapeutics. After 33 years of full-time service to the nation, my fear of retiring into poverty was dominating my thoughts. But after listening to you, I got the courage to roll over my 401k to a rollover IRA and manage my money with your guidance. Here I am reporting this unbelievable windfall of 251% in the volatile market we are in. I can feel the sincerity and dedication you put to change the lot of senior citizens like me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's incredible. The next one. Paul Mampilli and his team are just great. Since I started in 2018, I have enjoyed at least 10 stock positions with more than 150% gain. That is in 2 years. Not bad, isn't it? Thanks, Paul. You are the best ever. Now here's James Brown, who says, I bought Iridium Communications on February 16th, 2018 based on your excellent idea. Held it for less than 2 years and today sold for a total gain of 103%. Wow. I thank all of you for your stupendous, stellar, strong hands. And here's one from Holly Andrews, who shares, on March 22nd, you alerted us to buy. I was lucky enough to do so, although not much. Today, just 5 days later, I sold it for 110% gain. I salute you. That was great. And here's a letter from Mark Dugan. We're not sure how much he invested, but we estimate it was around $1,300. He says, I just made $6,000 on your RQL recommendation in under 2 years. 3-week trip to Ireland in May is now paid for. Incredible. It must make you feel so good. Really, there is no better way to describe this than revolutionary. You're not talking about hypothetical wealth or potential profits. It bears repeating. Over the last few years, your readers have done some incredibly exciting things with the profits they've generated.
Right.
College for kids, medical bills, travel, cars, and the list goes on and on. This is real money.
Right.
These are real people, and you're making a real difference for them. And it all traces back to this proprietary signal strategy you've created. The strategy that led you to Sarepta, Foundation, Medicine, and many others.
An average of 50 stocks, Karina, go up 1,000% or more each and every year. All my strategy does, the entire point of it, if you will, is to find the ones with the highest probability of fulfilling that 10-bagger destiny. And now, today, with America 2.0 kicked into overdrive, nothing short of a super bull market as a direct result of these three major economic forces that are converging, I think we will see bigger than 10 times the opportunities coming at us faster and more often than ever.
Paul, now that we understand your strategy for finding these explosive America 2.0 companies, and we've seen how your strategy can pinpoint these stocks before they take off, and we've heard from dozens of people who have made money with your work, I think it's time we dig into the opportunity you mentioned when we first started this broadcast. You said you have a major potential win right now, an investment that could shoot up 1,460% in the next 12 to 36 months by your calculations. Right. That's enough to turn every $10,000 into a $156,000 windfall.
I want to add, I think this could be the bare minimum if you're in early, as I am hoping all our viewers will be today. And this is the most excited I've been about an investment opportunity in years, Karina. I expect people will be talking about this company decades from now, Just as much as they talk about Qualcomm, Intel, or Micron Technology, it has all the makings of being a mega-sized company. And just like all those companies, anyone prudent enough to be there at the ground floor stands to make money hand over fist in the months ahead.
So why do you think this is such a game changer?
This company will be a key player to the rise of America 2.0, but not because it produces microchips or computers or cars or batteries. What it does is above and beyond, because it enables everything we see unfolding right now. And it has recruited some of the world's top minds for it. The CEO, for one, worked for years at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. The reputation behind this organization is so strong, it has an element on the periodic table named after it. Wow. Yeah. All told, since 1979, it won 129 R&D 100 awards. This is like the equivalent of like the Oscar, or the Oscars of science, if you will. And this CEO was one of their physicists. So his pedigree alone is incredibly significant. Then you add in the other executives with fame, such as Silicon Valley veterans, communication tech innovators, and more. In short, the sheer caliber of people at the helm here is stunning. And it's one of the reasons why I believe it will emerge as one of the most significant companies of our time.
So what does it do exactly?
So the company operates in the semiconductor or computer chip space, but there are several elements that separate it by a mile from its competition. For one, it is a key supplier for a very rare and very costly, but highly sought after material called indium phosphide. This semiconductor alone, which it produces through an advanced proprietary process, is completely integral to linking 5G base towers and then creating high-resolution radar systems for robotics, security scanning systems, and other imaging systems which require high energy output resolution and speed.
So it really is at the dead center of all the major technological leaps.
And that's just their positioning as a lead supplier of indium phosphide. It is also a major player in gallium arsenide, which is absolutely vital for industrial lasers, 3D sensing, industrial LED lighting for facilities, and it also produces germanium, which is used in satellites, multi-junction solar cells. Karina, I'm talking about satellites and solar cells, self-driving cars, faster phones, telecommunication, machine data relays, interconnectivity, stuff which has really been kicked into overdrive recently. And this company, it holds the keys to all of it.
The company is basically a one-stop shop for America 2.0.
And Karina, the market sees the same potential manifesting. This stock more than doubled within just 30 days, which is why it's so important to get in now while the price is still low. Because frankly, I don't believe it will stay this perfect for much longer.
And how does it line up with your strategy?
Perfectly. Let's start with Signal 1, disruption in market. As I said, it has pioneered a proprietary process that allows it to generate some of the most important semiconductors of our era. It calls this process vertical gradient freeze. And Karina, to date, it has issued 55 patents related to this process. And here's what's huge. This company's patent moat around their process for germanium, gallium, and indium phosphide gives it an absolute foothold in what is predicted to be a $20 trillion market.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Can you say that again?
Right, 20 trillion.
Wow.
I know, it's pretty incredible. But those three areas are expected to hit a market size of 20 trillion by 2026.
Wow. How about the numbers Signal you mentioned?
Right, so numbers. As we speak, the share price is around $5. And the company is sitting at a $200 million market cap or stock market value with just under 100 million in sales.
And it's growing consistently?
Its projected income growth into 2021 is 412%.
Wow, that could be the biggest leap that I've ever heard of. But how about scarcity?
Well, remember, it's one of the world's top suppliers for a crucial semiconductor. This already puts it in a position of high demand. We're talking a pristine triple crown win here, highly desirable and disruptive products with surging demand and scarce competition. And it only has 38 million shares outstanding, which is almost nothing compared to Microsoft's 7 billion shares outstanding.
Wow, that sounds like the perfect recipe for inevitable profits.
Well, I certainly believe so, Karina. Perfectly positioned companies such as this, the sky is truly the limit. Intel rode the rise of computing from $1.50 to nearly $70 per share. We're talking a gain of nearly 4,400% over the course of a decade. AMD went from $2 a share to $54 a share over the last 4 years. And that's just a few of the best wins in semiconductors. But I don't think I've ever seen a setup as perfect as the one we're discussing today. The company I truly believe will be the #1 super bull stock to own over the months and years to come for the best, absolute best shot at gains of 1,000%. In fact, Karina, I think with history as our guide and simple math, we can expect no less than 1,460%.
Wow, and how can our viewers get the full details about this company?
Well, I've actually just finished an urgent report called The Ultimate Super Bull Investment, which I want to make available to a small number of our viewers today.
Perfect. And I want to come back to how our viewers can potentially grab their copy. However, Paul, I am willing to bet that that's not the only company that you've been eyeing, right?
You'd be right. There are 5 more urgent stocks I've been watching, and I like each just as much as the super bull stock we just discussed. Let me quickly tell you about them because I know we are looking to wrap this up pretty soon. The first stock is a revolutionary medical tech company with a breakthrough for people with diabetes, a technology that allows continuous glucose monitoring with minimal maintenance by the patient. Its technology is 12 times more resilient than competitors. It has already received enormous financing from BlackRock and Oppenheimer, and it is priced at almost nothing right now. The second stock gets us into the battle with heart arrhythmias, specifically atrial fibrillation. Thanks to a revolutionary new technology, one company is blowing all others out of the water with twice the effectiveness of competitors. In the last few years alone, its revenue has more than quadrupled, and it's on track to more than double in the next 2 years. The third stock is a leader in the smart tech of the future, with cars, offices, and more being built using its patented technology. Its technology, Karina, is critical for the arrival of new smart buildings, which I believe will be everywhere in the near future. The fourth stock is a go-to for some of the world's biggest companies. I'm talking 40% of the Fortune 500. The reason is simple. It's able to use its proprietary modular technology to cut corporate energy expenses in half. On top of that, the U.S. Department of Energy declared that this technology will have a dynamic impact on the world's energy consumption, which I believe will lead to massive gains for us. The fifth stock is a leader in the Internet of Things revolution, perhaps one of the most significant leaps of our lifetime. This company estimates its particular technology could soon connect trillions of devices around the world. It is perfectly positioned to become a leader in a market that is estimated to grow almost 500% in a few years.
And you expect each of these stocks to rally 1,000% in the years ahead. And you've put these 5 stocks into another report that you're willing to rush a copy to our viewers today?
Absolutely, Karina. Now, with that said, each investment requires approximately 100 hours of research. I've carefully monitored some of these for years. In addition, my company spends well over $200,000 in research tools and expenses every year. So as you can imagine, just giving these 6 investment picks and the research behind them away for free is not an option. Instead, I want to do something better. I want to offer access to the research service that started all of this 2 years ago. The research service that has helped so many people revolutionize their wealth. It's called Extreme Fortunes.
I'm eager to know, how does this subscription to Extreme Fortunes work?
It's really simple. readers will receive my market commentary paired with a minimum of 12 new investment recommendations every year. In the past, we had times when we recommended, on average, 3 stocks a month even, almost 40 a year. So 12 is really a baseline. On average, we recommend 23 every year. But for example, this year, we have already recommended 15 opportunities to our readers.
So with the 5 stocks and their free copy of The Next Stock Market Windfall, plus the stock in your new report, The Ultimate Super Bull Investment, and a minimum of 12 new recommendations they will receive over the next year, that's at least 18 stocks. Each one you fully believe could go up 1,000%. But even if you're half right, even a tenth of the way right, this could represent a chance at least 18 opportunities to more than double your money. Mm-hmm. And as we've seen, you've had stocks recently double within a few weeks, some in a single day.
Yes, exactly. Now, I'm going to be really upfront about something, Karina. I work really hard researching these investment opportunities. And because I'm sharing so many of the secrets I've discovered during my career, I do have one hard rule. When someone joins my Extreme Fortunes Research Service today, I am giving them an incredibly great price, but they need to commit to it.
Well, I wouldn't expect anything less. Fact is, when people subscribe, they will instantly receive your top 6